The first time he noticed her, he couldn't look away. A faint bruise on the woman's wrist caught his eye as she moved quietly across the marble floors of his corporate office building, pushing a mop and bucket that rattled against the polished tiles. The sunlight streaming through the massive glass windows painted her in a golden halo, yet it could not hide the exhaustion etched deep into her face, or the pain hidden beneath her worn clothes. Thomas Greer, the CEO of Greer Enterprises, prided himself on noticing the smallest details. He had walked past countless employees, clients, and visitors in his life, but something about the way she moved, the quiet dignity in her steps despite the visible evidence of struggle, made his chest tighten. He couldn't place it immediately, but he knew there was a story behind those bruises, a story that needed to be heard. Before we dive deeper, if you believe in kindness and second chances, make sure to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more heart-touching stories. Her name was Emily. She was in her late 20s, with soft brown hair tied into a messy bun, and eyes that seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 sleepless nights. Every day, she cleaned offices, scrubbing the floors and wiping down surfaces while wearing a tired, yet determined expression. No one knew much about her life, and she preferred it that way. She had been raised by a mother who struggled to make ends meet, and when Emily turned 18, she had been forced to leave home to escape a situation that became increasingly dangerous. Over the years, she had learned to fend for herself, often taking the hardest, lowest-paying jobs just to survive. Despite everything, she had a spirit that refused to be broken. But the bruises on her arms, hidden beneath long sleeves even in the sweltering heat, told a story of a recent encounter with someone who had not shared her resilience. Thomas couldn't shake the image of Emily from his mind. That night, as he returned to his penthouse apartment overlooking the city, he replayed the moment again and again. He had seen plenty of people in need during his life, donations, charity events, even random acts of kindness, but something about the quiet suffering etched on Emily's face struck a chord deep within him. He realized that he couldn't just walk past this, not when he had the means to make a difference. That very night, he asked his assistant to gather any records he could find about the building's staff, looking specifically for Emily. He needed to understand who she was, where she came from, and, most importantly, how he could help. The following morning, Thomas approached her cautiously. He didn't want to alarm her or make her feel like a charity case. He simply asked if she would meet him in his office after her shift, promising nothing more than a conversation. Emily had learned to be wary of authority, of men who offered help only to exploit it. Her first instinct was to refuse. But something in Thomas's voice, the patience, the absence of judgment, made her pause. She nodded, hesitant but willing. When Emily entered his office, she felt completely out of place. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, and the sleek furniture glinted under the soft light. She tried to keep her posture straight, but her hands shook slightly as she held her mop. Thomas gestured to a chair and simply waited, letting the silence stretch long enough for her to realize that he was not in a rush to fill it with questions. Then he spoke, not as a CEO to an employee, but as a human to another human. He told her that he had noticed the bruises and that he was concerned. He didn't demand answers, he didn't press for explanations. He just expressed a simple, yet profound, statement: "I want to help, if you'll let me." For the first time in years, Emily felt a crack in the armor she had built around herself. She told him about her past, how she had been trapped in an abusive relationship, how she had struggled to survive, and how every day was a battle against despair and loneliness. Thomas listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't offer cliched advice. He simply listened, acknowledging the courage it took to speak these truths aloud. That day, something shifted. Emily realized that not all people with power sought to exploit the vulnerable. Some used it to protect, to lift, to give. Thomas didn't stop at listening. He took action. Over the next few weeks, he arranged for Emily to receive medical care, therapy, and a safe place to live, an apartment funded through his private resources, no questions asked. He also connected her with programs that offered job training and educational opportunities. For Emily, it was overwhelming. She had spent so long scraping by, hiding her bruises and her pain, that this sudden flood of kindness made her unsure how to respond. But slowly, she allowed herself to lean on the support offered. Slowly, she began to believe that life could be different. As Emily started to rebuild her life, Thomas observed quietly from the sidelines. He didn't micromanage or interfere, he simply provided a safety net that let her take risks. He encouraged her to return to school, to pursue dreams she had once considered impossible, and to rebuild the self-confidence that had been eroded by years of hardship. Emily, in turn, began to blossom. Her laughter became more frequent, her posture more confident, and her eyes brighter. She even returned to work at the company, not as a cleaner, but in a role that allowed her to learn new skills and grow professionally. Her transformation was remarkable, but it was not without struggle. There were moments of doubt, moments when the shadows of her past threatened to pull her back into fear and despair. Thomas never judged her for these moments. He simply reminded her that strength was not measured by perfection, but by the courage to continue, even when falling was inevitable. One rainy afternoon, nearly a year after that first encounter, Emily found herself in the office lobby again, not as a cleaner, but as a full-time administrative assistant with the opportunity to continue advancing within the company. She looked around at the same floors she had once scrubbed, remembering the quiet humiliation and exhaustion that had marked her early mornings. And yet, there was a sense of triumph now, a reminder that kindness, when genuine, could change the trajectory of a life. Thomas, watching her from across the office, felt a profound sense of fulfillment. It wasn't just about helping Emily, it was about witnessing the resilience of the human spirit. He realized that true leadership was not measured in profits or titles, but in the lives one could touch and transform. And Emily, for her part, carried forward a sense of gratitude and determination. She had been given a second chance, and she intended to make the most of it, not just for herself, but for others who might one day need the same kind of hope. Life continued to unfold, bringing both challenges and victories. Emily pursued further education in business administration, eventually mentoring other women who faced struggles similar to her own. She never forgot the man who had seen her bruises, not just as injuries, but as silent pleas for help. She often reflected on the moment when her life had pivoted, not because of her circumstances, but because someone had chosen to act with compassion, to see her as more than her pain. Meanwhile, Thomas implemented programs within his company to identify employees who might be silently struggling, creating a culture of empathy and support that transformed the workplace. It was small gestures, small interventions, but together they formed a safety net that allowed people to thrive instead of merely survive. He realized that change didn't always come from grand gestures. Sometimes it began with noticing a bruise, a small sign that someone was hurting. Sometimes it began with simply caring. Emily's story became a quiet inspiration within the company and beyond. Those who knew her journey saw proof that life could be rewritten, that the darkness of abuse and despair did not have to define the rest of one's life. And for viewers watching this unfold, it serves as a reminder that each act of genuine compassion carries the potential to change a life forever. Before we end, I want you to pause for a moment. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that one act of kindness can change everything, please comment below. Share your thoughts, your feelings, or even a story of your own where someone believed in you when you were at your lowest. Your engagement helps us bring more stories of hope and transformation to others who need them. Emily's journey didn't erase the past, but it gave her a future she had never dared to imagine. She moved forward with courage, compassion, and a determination to ensure that no one around her would feel invisible or forgotten. And Thomas, in noticing a single bruise, had changed not only her life but also the very culture of his company, leaving a legacy of empathy that would ripple outward in ways neither of them could have predicted. This story reminds us all that sometimes, the simplest act of noticing, of truly seeing someone's pain, can create a chain reaction that transforms lives. One moment, one decision, one choice to act with kindness, can illuminate the darkest corners of someone's life. And in that illumination, both the giver and the receiver are forever changed.